Happy Wine Wednesday.
Happy Wine Wednesday, Mira Boucher, Canadian wine lovers. How are you doing?
Okay.
How's it
Great.
going?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
hmm
go. Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, welcome to another great next hour or maybe two, we don't know, of Carl's Wine Club, Carl's Wine Club chat. We have a very special guest joining us in, let's say, 11-minute times or so. So we are going to have a lot of fun. This is Vineland Estate Week at Carl's Wine Club, and we're thrilled to feature and chat about the Vineland Estate wines from the Niagara Escarpment, one of the most, I would say, known winery in Ontario in terms of exposure at the LCBO, in terms of value, wines available out there, but also known for Cabernet Franc, Rieslings, and Chardonnay. Their owner, Vigneron, Brian Schmidt, a BC native, an Okanagan native, been born in the wine world and has been spent all of his life building that beautiful, beautiful winery of Vineland Estate is going to be joining us soon. So it's pretty cool. How are you doing, Mira? How's your week going?
Well, you know, it's been a long week, so I'm excited. I'm excited to just relax with you guys. And I'm really excited to try this wine. So I sniffed it a little bit
What
earlier.
do you mean, this wine? What do you mean? Wait a minute, wait a minute. Is there something special that are we tasting tonight?
Oh my
Is
gosh,
there
yes.
something special that
Very
we're tasting
special.
tonight?
Very special.
This is
So
one of the coolest thing in the country, and we are tasting it live tonight, so it's pretty cool.
this is what it normally looks like. It's a Magnum. There's only like 600 odd Magnums made so far.
There's by the way, there's only 60 of them left.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah,
Good to
yeah,
know. Good to know.
yeah.
But anyways, they we'll get into the story, but they did send us a very special sample of what's
This
going
is
on.
the 2.0. This is the 2.0. So yeah,
Yes.
it is a very unique, very special bottle that we have here, and we're going to chat about that project with Brian, the man behind the idea, the man behind the vineyard. What that mean? What's the meaning of the legacy? What was the purpose of that project? The story behind it. It's absolutely fantastic. I just love these true story. You know, I love stories with backbones. I love stories with purpose. And this one, it's all of that and more. So yeah, I think you have some picture of that, but we had the privilege to tailgate with
Right.
Brian this
Over there.
summer. We had a blast. You know, when you go touring sometime, you expect to go to a tasting bar or have a little winery tour. With Brian, it's completely different. Hop in the back of the truck, get a glass, we're going tailgating. You know what? Back
We
in
went
my
and
day,
saw the vineyards themselves, and it was amazing. So guess what? Brian's already in the green room.
oh God, he
So this is
wow.
somebody that his name is Brian Schmidt. He's the winemaker at Vineland Estates for over 3 decades, I believe now. But
Winemaker, repair guy, janitor. He does everything there. Every time something's, he does everything. He knows everything about vineyards. He's first and foremost a grape grower. He's a farmer. After
well,
that, he's a winemaker, but he also does everything.
yeah, he's very, very passionate. Some incredible projects we've been seeing, even like some space wine or something like that. That's not in our feature this week, but maybe something interesting that we'll learn about. And his name, Brian Schmidt. This is where you can tell Carl doesn't speak English as a first language. Carl believes that his name rhymes with Cabernet Franc. Mhm.
I knew that shit would get back there. It would turn against me at some point. I knew it was gonna happen. But yeah, you know what?
So if
I
you
don't
like
give a
Cabernet
crap.
Franc, this is one to watch. So
When it
let's bring
comes
on
from
Brian.
you, Mira Boucher, I take it as a compliment. And yeah, it rhymes. Come on, say it again. Cap Franc, Brian Schmidt. Cap Franc, Brian Schmidt. It totally rhymes, right?
Brian. Yeah.
Totally right. So,
Here's Brian.
Brian, what do you think? Is
Hey,
Capra rhyme with Brian Schmidt?
it sure feels like it does. Exactly. My grandfather's middle name was Francis, and so Francis and Frank is pretty close. So
There you
we're there.
go.
We're there. So hey guys,
Welcome, Brian.
I want to apologize. I'm drinking tea. We have a this cold virus that's making its way around Southern Ontario right now, and I got it from my little granddaughter on the weekend, and so I'm drinking tea. Every once in a while, I guzzle back a bunch of Buckleys so I don't cough my lungs up on this call, and I've got a little pack of Kleenex over here to wipe my nose every once in a while. So I apologize if I don't have a glass of wine and enjoy that with you, but I'll be able to tell you some stories.
You know what, Brian? I've heard that we've been reading stories that, even the Minister of Health is suggesting everyone to wear a mask back in public areas and all that. There's some pretty nasty stuff going around right now in your area.
A lot of respiratory things going on. My granddaughter's in preschool, and so as preschoolers, as you all know, pick up every single virus possible, and so I'm happy to share it with her. If that's what she wants to share with me, then I'll take it.
Well, it's great to have you, Brian. Thanks for taking the time. I knew you had a busy evening. You were with one of our colleague from Ontario, Leah Spooner. So really, really good. I love what she does. Unfortunately, I couldn't tune in to see your show earlier, but I'm sure it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I just signed off with her, and I'm happy to jump on and chat with you guys.
Thank you. So it's Vineland Weeks here at Carl's Wine Club, and we're already sending 12 packs and 6 packs of Vineland wine all over the country. So we're happy. I know that members are pretty happy to have the Vineland wines available to them again just before the holidays. So really good timing. So Brian, before we start, I would like you, because now we're having a lot of people tuning in from your Facebook page, from our channels as well, but there's a lot of people from out of British Columbia, Alberta, Western Canada. I would like you to situate, where is the Niagara Escarpment exactly, and what makes the escarpment, your subregion, very special?
Gosh, so the Niagara Escarpment itself is actually been slated as a world biosphere. It is a 700-kilometer stretch of land that extends from actually Lewiston, just sort of west of Lewiston, New York, along the northern, the northern tip of the United States, and the southern tip of Lake Ontario, kind of wraps around Lake Ontario, and then all the way up to Tobermory, which is 700 kilometers north of here. So that Niagara Escarpment itself is the only real relief that Ontario has. Having grown up in BC and not far from where you guys are right now in Summerland, having the mountains around me as a child was a real blessing. And when I moved to Ontario, funny story, my wife I met my wife here, and she wanted to take me skiing. We went to a place called Blue Mountain, and Blue Mountain is about 3.5 hours north of here, and up we go, driving all that. We got all our snow, our gear. We're ready to go skiing, and we drive up, and she says, "There's the hill," and I'm like, "What do you mean there's a hill?" There's no hill. She says, "No, that's Blue Mountain. That's it. And so basically, this Niagara Escarpment is a couple of hundred feet high at its greatest point, like 600 feet or so, and so that is the hill that you ski down. It's like not even 1,000 feet. And so this escarpment really is the only relief that we have in Southern Ontario, and you have to think of it as the ancient shoreline. So where Lake Ontario is now, it was 10,000-12,000 years ago. It was several hundred feet higher, and it slowly receded over 10 or 12,000 years, and exposing all of the natural limestone substrate that was beneath the Lake Ontario itself, and depositing this clay substrate in all of the areas it could, as it slowly traversed down the hill over several millennia. Depositing all of the clay and taking all of the sand, the lighter soils, and depositing that on the plains and the lowest part of Niagara Escarpment. So the lowest part of Southern Ontario, sorry. So the Niagara Escarpment itself is a really special place. It's due south of Lake Ontario where we are. And Vineland Estates in particular is about 20 minutes west of St. Catharines. We're about 45 minutes from Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we're about 30 minutes or so from Hamilton. So we are kind of right in the middle of that. We refer to our area as the 20-mile bench. And many years ago, when the settlers were originally here, they discovered these little rivers, and they refer to them as 20-mile, 30-mile, 40-mile. 40 Creek whiskey is actually named after the creek that moves right through the town that I live in, Grimsby. And so these 10-mile increments, not exact by any stretch, but are where the water would have come off of the top of the escarpment and made its way down into Lake Ontario. The greatest river that passes through the Niagara Escarpment is where Niagara Falls is, in the Niagara River. And so if you can imagine, many years ago, Ontario was at the top of where Niagara Falls is now, and it slowly receded. So that dramatic drop right at Niagara Falls is basically where we are on the top of the escarpment. We're at the top of Niagara Falls.
Okay. And I think also the escarpment has play a huge role in grape growing, in the condition what's Niagara-on-the-Lake versus what the escarpment has the airflow, so avoid often the frost pocket, and it play a huge role, right?
Yeah, you're right. So in the maturation of the Vintners Quality Alliance and VQA in the early 2000s, we began establishing sub-appellations, and we identified individual areas, 10 distinct sub-appellations through the Niagara Peninsula, the entire Niagara Peninsula, where there's some geographical separations, but definitely some geological separations that create very different winemaking conditions. And so these 10 distinct sub-appellations are really expressions of how you can grow grapes differently just throughout the Niagara Peninsula. And as we grow and evolve, we'll probably see those sub-appellations continue to become more defined.
And I think like when you're looking at the new generation of winemaker, like the Ilya Sanchuk, the Kevin Papanatka, like these guys, and Thomas Batchelder was one of the, like they played a lot with these sub-appellation, vineyard specific, focusing on sub-GI to create that sense of micro sense of place. And I think that's such a good thing. What's happening right now in the Ontario wine industry.
We're in the middle of a bit of a renaissance. And so when you've got somebody like Thomas Batchelder, as you said, and others, Ely is a great example. I could name another half a dozen or so. But Thomas is probably the single greatest troubadour for sub-appellation. He just did a recent release of like 19 different sub-appellation wines. Some of them are like 40 cases each is what he's done. And so when you've got people that are generating that kind of interest, and when they're making those kind of distinct wines, it is absolutely amazing for our region. And not only do I wish them a tremendous amount of success, but the beauty is I get to learn from them as well.
So that's a great humble person here, someone who has started, because I think you have said, or you're sitting on the VQA board, and you've been involved in all of that process of sub-appellation throughout the years as well, right?
Yeah. I've been on the VQA board for 15 years. I've sat as chair for 10 years, I think, something like that.
There you go, and still learning. There you go. I love it.
Every single day. If we don't learn something every single day, then we're not paying attention.
You're so right about that, Mira. Join the conversation, for God's sake. You've been way too quiet. How are you doing out there? Oh, not yet. I think she's working on something. Okay, Brian, let me start. Before we talk about the very special thing here. Let's go through the whole lineup that what we're offering to Carl's Wine Club members this week.
Sure.
It's the second time around that we're featuring Vineland Estate, and I wanted to go back before the holidays because I knew we could offer something. I love the value proposition for certain wines. And there's one wine in particular in the whole lineup that Al, one of your very valuable staff member, Al is in charge of export and distribution, and he knows the business inside out. He called me today and said, Carl, don't push the 2020 Cab Franc too much. This wine is getting sold out, okay? This one. And I said, Al, I promise I won't push it too much, but I have to ask Brian, how can you make a $15.95 wine at that quality.
Oh
Listen,
my
I
God.
gave it a 91 plus point. I know that my colleague Rick Vansickle is a big fan of what you do. He gave it a 92 points. This, especially from the 2020 vintage, this $16 Cab Franc absolutely blew his price point out of the water. It's incredible.
So quickly answer that question, I would have to encapsulate the last 30 years of my life. So by embracing some certain innovations, by embracing some certain techniques, one of those things that is probably not familiar to many of your viewers is something called microbrillage or microoxygenation. So when we put wine in barrels, we are able to ensure that there's a micro amount of oxygen that is interacting with the wine, softening the wine over a period of time. We can measure this. But the problem with putting wine in barrels is it's expensive. The barrels are expensive. The real estate's expensive. The labor's expensive. So when you're putting them into barrels, you can never, ever get your return on your investment unless you're selling those wines for a premium, and whatever that premium would happen to be, $5, $10, $15, whatever it happens to be. So by allowing these wines to age in stainless steel tanks, in large format stainless steel tanks, by bringing in fruit from growers that are focused on quality, putting it through this optical sorter that we have this absolutely amazing technology that allows us to individually select berries based on the color, which will determine ripeness. So we put 10,000 kilograms of grapes per hour through this particular machine, sorting out all of the inferior grapes, taking that out. We make rosé out of that. It makes beautiful rosé. It's wonderful. But so by using technology, by using some very innovative winemaking practices, we're able to gain the economies of scale that we need in order to be able to make this wine en masse and have it available to consumers throughout now Canada. Thank God for that. With all of your wine club members included, we're able to make a wine like that at that $16 price point. It was incredibly important for me to do that. And I had been working on this for years because the LCBO, just like the monopoly in BC where they're selling wines, the LCBO has wines from all over the world that they're still selling on their store shelves. And these are great wines, stunning wines that our consumers have access to, and that's what they're comparing it to. So that price band of $15 is incredibly competitive. And so I toiled, and I tinkered, and I played for years in order to be able to get us to a point at which I would be able to pour a wine in your glass that you purchased for $15 or $16 a bottle that is equal to or as good as any other wine in that price band category from anywhere in the world, because that's our competition. Is having them understand that. So
these are $16 Malbec from Argentina.
Exactly.
These the Cab Merlots from Chile, the Syrah Cab from Argentina, from Australia, right? These mass produced wine who comes here at an incredible price point. That's where you're going after.
And so I was fighting a bit of an uphill battle because in Ontario, if we're truthful, for years didn't have an extraordinary reputation for making great red wine. We make fantastic white wine, and everybody knew that. And 25 years ago, that began to shift. Winemakers began to focus on quality. They began to focus on understanding their vineyards, and they began to focus on embracing technology that was going to help them be able to make wines that would be considered on a world stage. And so with all of that in mind, it literally took me 30 years to be able to make that 2020 vintage wine for you to enjoy today, and focused all of my energy, focused all of my effort into doing that, because the lion's share, we all know the lion's share of volume of wine sold is sub $20. And so when you get above $20, the volume of wine that's sold throughout any outlet reduces significantly. And so if we're going to be putting Ontario on a world map, we need to be able to do it with a wine like you just talked about, that 2020 Cab Franc. So we can, if I took all of my energy, all of my effort, and all of my focus and made 4 barrels of wine, you damn well better bet that is freaking extraordinary wine, because I focused all of my energy. But when you can focus all of your energy and effort and make 10,000 cases of a wine that is extraordinary, that can be enjoyed by the masses, there's a certain pleasure in that too.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's sending your business card in many more households It's
Exactly.
putting your label in so many households, and now people want to discover a little bit more
It's
because
exactly
this is
right.
so impressive.
It builds confidence, right? So then when they enjoy a $15 bottle of wine, then they're going to begin to explore. They're going to say, well, what else can Vineland Estates do? What else can Leaning Post do? What else can a winery from Ontario that's been growing grapes for 40 years? What else can they do that's going to tempt my palate? What's going to excite me and excite my guests around my table?
But you know, we have that perfect progression here, because if we look at it, we have the $16 Cabernet Franc here. We can move to the elevation series here. And also, and if you're really a lover, now you got the $35 single vineyard, single clone. So we got the three line up here. When we talk about like progression, so when we move to the elevation series, now you're a little bit more on a blend of Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, a little touch of Merlot in there.
Touch of Cab Sauv, not Merlot.
Oh, Cab Sauv. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually Mira put the line underneath, so I get all my information. But and so yeah. So what's the step up from the $16 to the elevation series?
Mm-hmm. What's the step up? The step up.
Yeah. So what's the process? What does it change? Yeah. So it's probably the barrel program that you threw in there.
So in your intro, you spoke about me spending my time in the vineyard, that I'm a grape grower. I could not agree with you more. My entire role here is growing grapes. I'm going to tell you that making wine, quite frankly, is the simple part. Growing great grapes is the key to success in any wine region in the world. So I focus all of my attention in our vineyard. So in terms of the winemaking processes, with the exception of the Cabernet Franc that you just looked, the 2020 general list, that spends time in stainless steel barrels, the elevation and boutique above goes into neutral oak and spends time in neutral oak barrels in our barrel cellar, where I am right now. And if I look forward, I'm looking at 300 barrels. But the winemaking process has basically been standardized. I do nothing different with the Cabernet Franc general list than I do with the legacy wine that you're speaking about. I do nothing different. Everything is the exact same. I minimize the amount of interaction that I have with those wines. Basically, it's taken me 30 years to learn how to get the frig out of the way. Grow great grapes and let them take care of themselves in the cellar. Because if you grow great grapes, you don't have to mess around with tweaking and messing around with trying to get more extract, trying to get more weight, more body. Those vines are going to take care of themselves once they're in the tank. So the only difference between the elevation and the clonal series that we have and the reserve is the amount of grapes you grow on the vine, on each vine. So our elevation is grown at about 3.5 to 4 tons per acre. The clonal series is grown at about 2.5 to 3 tons per acre. The reserve is grown at about 2 tons per acre, and the elevation is grown at about 1.5 tons per acre. So the only difference between all of those wines is how much we have burdened each vine with. That is the only difference. It's speaking about
the time in barrel doesn't change.
The time in barrel is virtually exactly the same, roughly 14 to 16 months in neutral oak barrels. So we have no new oak barrels in our portfolio. There's no new oak influence happening in those wines. It's all neutral. So everything that you're getting, all the work that we do in the vineyard goes directly into the barrel, and we're not influencing it with any other flavors or textures. You are getting the true expression of the vineyard, and you're getting the true expression of the skill that it takes to grow grapes in a vineyard like Boutique.
Well, okay. Now that you're talking Boutique, I have the 214 here, Cabernet Franc. And when we tailgated together with our friend Rob Amersley and Michelle, by the way, it's Rob's birthday today.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, happy birthday, Rob.
Absolutely.
He's listening.
Absolutely. It's Rob's birthday today. And so Michelle is flying somewhere. She's a flight attendant. And anyhow, we were with Michelle and Rob and a couple other people this summer when you took us tailgating with you. And we headed to the Boutique Vineyard. There you go. There's Brian here. I think there was a wine rack right behind with not full of full of glasses. It was full of bottles in the wine rack just to keep
Yeah,
the
I think
bottles up.
I had a bunch of stones from my vineyard in the truck as well.
But when we headed into the spot in the boutique vineyard, there's on one side of the trail there's a 214, and on the other side is a 389. I'm not sure if I got the right number
Yeah,
for the
327. Yeah, 214 and 327.
327,
Yeah.
and that was a big revelation to me. Tasting these bold clonal wine in the vineyard, having like the plant right there, right sitting there, tasting it, it was an absolute privilege. So,
So
here,
that's really what I was speaking about. That it's important for me as a winemaker just to get out of the way and let the grapes speak for themselves. The clonal differences that we're speaking about between 214 and 327. I have no influence over that. The only influence I have is how we grow those grapes and how we crop those vines. We pick them according to their level of ripeness. And when you taste the 327 and the 214 side by side, and you're in the vineyard tasting them with me as you were, you can see those grapes. 214 is a much smaller, more concentrated berry. 327 is a much larger, broader, rounder berry. The 214 is a little more elegant. The 327 is a little bit more robust, and
rustic,
that
right?
all happens entirely based on the growing conditions of the vineyard and the clonal differences of those vines. Because once they reach the cellar, I don't do anything different with either of those vines. I don't treat them differently. I do exactly the same with one that I do with the other. It goes into neutral oak barrel, stays there for 14 or 16 months, comes out of barrel, we put it in the bottle. So what you're tasting there is just the clonal difference in soil.
It's incredible because now we're talking about a very small production, right? This is like something like under 300 cases.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
small production, but the reflection of the grape, it's not even the reflection of the dirt at that point. It's just the berry, like the clonal, it's fascinating.
Yeah, because the soil type is consistent from one end of the vineyard to the other, where 214 and 327 are growing in the same vineyard. So you're right. Everything that you're getting there is about the clonal difference in those vines.
Mira, remember that day? That was pretty cool, eh?
That was really special. Yeah, pretty amazing.
There you go.
For me, it's particularly rewarding that we just finished the 2022 vintage, and as you know, we had some difficulty with last winter. The region as a whole, the region struggled and lost some vines, lost some buds in cold temperatures last winter. We're down probably 40 or 50% volume as a regional whole. Our vineyard, we did nothing different than any other grape grower in Ontario. We were blessed, and we didn't suffer from any vine or bud losses. What we did suffer with was a drought. We had 7 weeks with no rain through the summertime. So the berries were much smaller, much more concentrated, and bringing the fruit in across our crush pad over the last 2 months has been so unbelievably rewarding for me, because we have some wines of extraordinary quality. This is now my 32nd vintage, and I'm as excited about this particular wine as the 2020, the 2012, 2016. These are all pretty extraordinary vintages that we've enjoyed, specifically for red wines. But I'm pretty much ready to say this might be our best vintage ever.
That's incredible. That's incredible, because just being like a couple years removed from, like, I will quote that ice cellar in Niagara-on-the-Lake is called the 2020, the vintage of the century. Like many growers and many winemakers were calling that 2020 was pretty hard to beat, referring to 2012 as well. But right on the like a couple of years removed from that 2022, and all of the question mark and the worries, and obviously because the crop was looking so small because of the frost, now getting to that quality, like you just said, it must be pretty darn rewarding.
Well, so I really like the 2020 vintage. I thought it was pretty amazing, and Adnan's not wrong. He makes a slightly different style of wine than we do. I would say the one flaw of 2020 is that our alcohols were a little bit too high. There was a little bit too much extract. For me as a winemaker, and what I'm hoping to convey to people is that we want wines with a little more elegance, have alcohol a little bit more restrained. So 2022 has given us exactly that. We've got 13% alcohol, 12.8, 13.2, 13.5 in one case. And so the wines are going to be a little bit more elegant. And I think they're going to be more long-lived. The pHs are lower. And that's a really important feature for wine. I don't want to get into wine chemistry, but having slightly lower pHs is a clear indicator to me that wines will age for a longer period of time. When the pHs are high, then they're going to age pretty quickly. So 2022, I think it's better than 20.
Jesus Christ, you're getting me excited now. Woo-hoo!
Get back on a plane and come try these wines.
Yeah. Hey, Mira, start the car. Pack the luggage.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, let's let the
We'll be there by the spring. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, let's talk Chardonnay a little bit, because I can't have a 35 minutes, 40-minute conversation without talking about Chardonnay. So the reserve Charmat method, I thought that was brilliant. Often Charmat method would just like pop like the big bubbles right up front, dissipate quite fast. This is well made. This is round. This has tropical fruit, but the nice laser acidity who comes through, and the bubble just just surf into your mouth. I really, really enjoyed that reserve Chardonnay.
That's Clone 76, and that is also the escarpment. So the vineyard that we grow these grapes in is probably one of the most unforgiving blocks that we have. There is no soil above the limestone. In some cases, we had to actually take some vineyards out because they were suffering so badly, where we only had like 14 inches above the solid bedrock limestone that was underneath there. And so those vines have the natural minerality that you can expect from a vine that is grown in limestone escarpment, stony conditions. One of the other features of this, though, is that not only, so we make the wine as we do with all sparkling wines. We have the base wine that we press through the Cremant process. So we're fractioning that juice. We're taking only a portion of it as the cuvee for the primary wine that we're going to make. So there's actually a calculation that we do based on some methods that have been embraced in Champagne for many millennia. And so we embrace all of these traditional winemaking Champagne methods in terms of grape growing, in terms of pressing, but then it goes into Charmat. And at that point, I actually hand that wine off to another winemaker, Mauro from Vineland Estates Winery. I trust him implicitly, and they have an unbelievable process in place where they're doing small batch ferments through Charmat, and they're doing it for a number of wineries around. And so if there's somebody recently talked about collaborative efforts, I'd like to scream at the top of my lungs that this is a collaborative effort. This is between me growing the grapes, making the primary base wine, and Mauro helping us out, putting it through his Charmat process. And Charmat is great because you can capture all of these bright, brilliant
freshness, right?
The brilliant aromas, this freshness, without getting kind of the lees aging that you might expect from method traditionnel or method champenois. And so this is fermented in a tank and then bottled under an isobaric bottling line that they have. So they've invested a tremendous amount of money to help us make that wine as good as it is. So shout out to Mauro from Vineland Estates Winery for helping us with that. And they've been helping us for years with our sparkling wines. And yeah, I love it. I had a bottle of it on the weekend. It's stunning. I just love it. Love it.
I know. I love like how the tropical fruit comes out, because 2020 was warm, right? Yeah. So we got much more tropical notes, but that bright acid to me just come at the end and just pop the whole thing. It's absolutely fantastic.
That acid comes totally from the escarpment. It's just those vines are there. There's not a lot of water for those vines to sit in. There's no water reservoir whatsoever, and so that acidity just maintains super high levels throughout the entire growing and winemaking process.
From Clone 76, and this is one of a little unknown here, right? Like people, I knew Chardonnay Muscat from a couple of my trip in Sonoma, a couple in Russian River Valley. I met with some of, bless you, a couple of growers working with Chardonnay Muscat, and so when we tailgated together, we had the chance to taste the Muscat and the regular Chardonnay side by side, and that little floral aspect of the Musqué was so evident when you taste both side by side. So, so how long have you been working with Musqué?
Yeah, so when you talk about Chardonnay, or you talk about any grape variety for that matter, we talked about the clonal difference of 214 and 327 with Cabernet Franc. Chardonnay, we spoke about clone 79 that we use for our sparkling program that we have. So every single grape variety, think of it as a family. My last name is Schmidt. Think of Chardonnay as the last name, and so you have the children of the Boucher family. So you've got multiple children. Think of those as the clones. So Cabernet Franc's children clones are 214 and 327. Chardonnay has about 49 different children, about 49 different clones. The 79 that we spoke about, this is actually, the Chardonnay Musqué is clone 809. So if we were to, it's actually a Chardonnay, but we've more or less usurped the term Musqué in order to be able to express the difference that it has aromatically, because it has some definitive muscat characteristics, but it's actually a Chardonnay grape. And so those muscatty, bright, brilliant tropical notes that you spoke about, very, very heady aromas, and it's unique unto its own. And so we began identifying clone 809 throughout the peninsula. I'm so sorry at this cold.
Oh, no, that's all good. I feel your pain.
So clone 809, we began to identify it around the peninsula, and we didn't know that clone 809 existed when 40 years ago, when these vines were all being planted. All we heard was it's Chardonnay, and we're putting Chardonnay in the ground. And then we began to identify, like, my gosh, this little block has some unbelievable aromatics. Why is that so different? We began to peel away the layers and began to understand these nuances, these different nuances between all the different clones of Chardonnay, and then began to identify 809, and then began to plant it on purpose in vineyards. So we now have 4 different vineyards that are planted solely with clone 809 or Chardonnay Musqué, because it is so tropical, so floral, so brilliantly aromatic. And it's just such a unique wine. I absolutely love that. Chilled on a patio by the poolside in the summer, sign me up.
Absolutely. And there's a purity into that. Obviously, there's no oak at all. So this is unoaked. So for the people that the ABCs out there, right? Because there's still a lot of people that know anything but Chardonnay, but this is not the typical what you have in mind, the oaky, heavier style, vanilla. So this is completely the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's almost like a banana parfait.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. No, that was pretty special. I loved it. That's why I wanted to put that in the lineup among a couple of Rieslings, because Riesling is something that you love to work with. Listen, if the escarpment has to be known for something outside of Cabernet Franc, because your name is Schmidt, so that's a company that gets Schmidt rhyme, right? So.
Yeah, but so what's really neat about this place, and I shared this with you when you were here, when Hermann Weiss planted these vines 42 years ago, he came from Germany, and he was looking for a special place that he could plant his vines that he grew at his nursery in Germany, plant them here so he could convince other people in Canada to continue to buy his grapevines and plant them in their vineyards. So when he planted these grapes here, he didn't necessarily say, I want to make a winery. I want to start a winery in Ontario. That ended up happening. But the sole purpose originally was to sell grapevines and to convince people that you could make great wine from Riesling in this unknown little corner of the wine world that 40 years ago nobody paid attention to. He believed it. He believed in us long before we ever even knew that we had a possibility or potential. And so when he planted these vines here and a couple of other places like Cave Spring Cellars, and the Lenko family put some Riesling in on their property. I think the Speck brothers were some early adopters of Riesling as well. But you can think of St. Urban Vineyard, the vineyard that is surrounding where I'm sitting right now around this property, around the winery, is kind of the epicenter of Riesling in Canada. And solely based on the fact that Hermann Weiss came here in 1976 seeking a place to put his foot in the ground, his grapes in the ground, and show Canadians that you could be better than we were then. And his prophecy came true. And now here we are 40 odd years later, making some of the best, most identifiable Rieslings, not only in Canada, but maybe even in the world. And so we're incredibly proud of that. And it's these 42-year-old vines, my gosh, they just keep chugging away.
And, you know, am I right to say, because, you know, we always, when we talk about, especially a grape varietal, it's known in the old world, right? We always try to compare. Oh, this is a German style Riesling. This is more Alsatian style Riesling, or this is Hunter Valley style. You know what? I think it's time for us to start talking about its Niagara style Riesling, because now I really think that we have our very own identity of Riesling, that nice, and we're not scared to leave some residual sugar in there, because our acid are so bright and balance out the, like, for the winemaker who wants to leave a little bit of RS in there, our acid just round that or cut it through with that beautiful roundness of residual sugar. So I called it the Niagara style. Am I wrong, or?
Well, so for years we did exactly that. We were copying other regions that we felt that we could emulate. And one of the things that we realized is that Niagara Rieslings do not do well with higher alcohols. If you've got 12% alcohol, it's not the best, most natural expression of Riesling in Ontario. It's not its comfort zone. If you think of a radio, you're dialing in a radio and trying to tune it in, 12% alcohol on that radio of Riesling is pretty fuzzy. You can't hear a dang thing. And so over years, we've begun to realize that reducing the alcohols, and it took me quite a number of years to do it, because people were not really understanding that low alcohol Riesling was a good thing. They naturally associated higher alcohol with quality. That consumer perception is gone now, thankfully, and they've matured, and they've begun to understand the potential for Riesling. And so, if you look at the back of that label, it says 8% alcohol.
8%, exactly, 8% and it's alcohol. Not a typo. It's not a miss. Exactly. This is 8%. That's what, like, it's surprising.
And the acidity, the natural acidity, is around 10.5 grams per liter. At harvest. And so when you leave 25 or 30 grams RS into that wine, it does not taste dry. It does not taste sweet. So people fear sweet Rieslings, and rightly so. Years ago, the world was inundated with really uninteresting sweet Rieslings. But when you have the acidity, the backbone of acidity to support that sweetness, you have this sort of collective, universal
harmony.
Exactly. Harmony and beauty that really fits together. And so the Niagara region is really becoming unto its own now, and recognizing that we do have a style. And if the Elevation Riesling has helped cement that in the minds of consumers, then I really appreciate that. I'm happy about that.
And again, price point wise, like, it's hard to beat that kind of price point. Now we're talking like just like what, $22 for the Elevation series?
Yeah, 22, yeah.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And for me, when I look at the Christmas table, right, I always see my grandma used to make a big piece of ham. That roasted ham with the pineapple sauce. It was one of our classic in my family out in Chicoutimi. And guess what? A Riesling like that with my favorite roasted ham is just an absolute beauty. So yeah, that's exciting for Christmas holiday.
So I have one question then. Pineapple on ham. Can a ham and pineapple pizza, is that good?
You know, apparently it's not the same. That's not the same.
The great debate continues.
Pizza, it's double meat on pizza. Bacon, double sausage. Okay, but no pineapple.
There you go. The great debate continues.
Brian, this is for the lineup. Listen, we have a Pinot Meunier in there with the boutique, because Pinot Meunier is very, very... But let's move on, because I think I'm thrilled, and I just had a couple sips. I couldn't help myself to wait. We're tasting here today, and we want to talk about the Legacy program. We want to talk about a 10-year, there you go, a 10 years project in the making. That's completely, you started that, I think, in 2020 now, 2010 was the beginning of the idea?
Yeah. So let me start at the beginning. So when I embarked on this project, we had a special vineyard. There's south-facing slopes throughout the world are celebrated. Now, the Niagara Escarpment, because we are um, facing towards Lake Ontario, which is north. The Niagara Escarpment in general has more northern facing elevations, maybe a 1 or 2 degrees, but slightly northern facing elevations. And we've got a small strip of land that moves right through the center of our boutique vineyard that has a south facing elevation. One of a dozen or so in Ontario. I know Henry Pelham has a couple of south facing slopes, and they've taken advantage of that. A couple of other vineyards around have also taken advantage of that. So we had this one acre block of a south facing slope, and I wanted to plant it with Cabernet Franc, particularly the clone 214, because I had grown to love it over the previous years of growing it. From 2006, we planted 327 in 1996. We planted 214 in 2006. And so I was really loving the expression of the Cabernet Francs from 214. So I took these 214 vines, put them in this little 1 acre block to answer a simple question. Now, we talked about sub-appellations and the evolution of the Niagara wine industry over a number of years. And we all talk about, what does a place taste like? So what does Chambord-Musigny taste like in Burgundy? What does Saint-Estèphe taste like in Bordeaux? And the question, when you talk about that as an appellation, we're still struggling, and we were struggling with the answer. What does the 20-mile bench Cabernet Franc taste like? What does the Beamsville bench Pinot Noir taste like? Why are they different? Why are they different sub-appellations? And so I was asked the question, as I was so proud of our boutique vineyard. People would say, well, what does the boutique vineyard taste like? And I was always using the previous vintage as my answer. So
description, right?
And so it was oscillating, and I was never able to give them a firm answer. And I ended up, quite frankly, just making shit up. And I would, because I didn't really know. I didn't have 100 years of experience. And I really got tired of that, because I didn't have a fully answer formed fully in my mind. And so I decided to create the answer. So by putting these vines in the ground, making wine from them in the very first vintage that came out in 2012, barreling that down, 2013 came, we made wine from that, we barreled that down, 2014 came, we barreled that down, and eventually I blended all of these vintages together. And so now we have from 2010 when they were planted, and the first vintage 2012 to 2022 when we did the first 2021 when we did the first bottling. I had all of these vintages of wines that had never been bottled, never been released, not even tasted. It was a secret in many cases. When I bottled the Legacy, the very first bottling of Legacy, my brother was like, "What in the hell is this?" I work with my brother here at the winery. He said, "What the hell is this? Where did this come from?" I said, "It's just a little secret that I've had percolating in the cellar." And so we had 8 or 9 barrels of this that had slowly grown from a small amount that we made in 2012, and this volume of wine that had been collected together. And the purpose of that was for me to be able to taste the wine without the vintage itself being part of the tasting experience, because we have cool vintages, hot vintages, dry vintages, wet vintages, and it was oscillating. And so if I took all of those vintages together, married them together in one blend, I would be able to come up with the answer, what does boutique taste like? And so
That's crazy.
And so I was able to do this, and I did this quietly in our cellar, and had this little secret stash of barrels in the corner that I was slowly growing each year with a little bit more and a little bit more wine. And I, at one point, I thought, this is really special. This is not just an academic exercise for me. This is not me just coming up with an answer. This is really special. The wine was stunning. And I started thinking about, what does this mean? And I started thinking about who I was, my belief in Cabernet Franc. I started thinking about the people that were working with us over the years that I had made these wines. And I started thinking about other attributes and aspects of who Vineland Estates was. And I began to think about our legacy. What is Vineland Estates' legacy? We've been making wine here now for 40 odd years. I've been here for 32 years. what is our legacy? Because you see all of these regions around the world who have been making wine for centuries. They have these beautiful legacies, these beautiful sagas, these beautiful stories that they can share. And I've been fortunate to travel to amazing places throughout the world and learn from and have them share their stories with me. Some remarkable stories about in the 1945, a man from the Loire walking across Germany and across France after being released from a concentration camp and making the 1945 vintage at a small little family winery in the Loire. And these stories are all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, what an unbelievable legacy they have. And I started thinking about our legacy. What is our legacy here at Vineland Estates? What have we done? And I decided to make this wine, to bottle this wine in honor of our legacy. So the legacy story itself is really based on three pillars. One is my wholehearted, full-throated belief that Cabernet Franc is the champion grape for Ontario. My love of the boutique vineyard. I grew up with it. We planted it in 1996. I started here in 1991. I've grown up with these vines. I know every vine individually. I know its strengths. I know its weaknesses. And then the time that it took to make this wine, the 10 years, and ultimately now we call this infinity vintage, as you see on the label, for the next however many years. When I'm not here, the winemaker who takes my place is going to have this cache of wines of 1,800 liters, and we'll talk about that in a bit. This cache of wines that has a small fraction of the original DNA of the very first wine ever made from that vineyard. That winemaker will have that. We talk about the people that have been part of our story. Vineland Estates is the origin story of so many amazing individuals in Ontario that are currently making wine or having a profound influence on the Ontario wine and the Canadian wine industry. They had their origin story right here at Vineland Estates. They started here. And so we've been able to work with them, tutor them, help them along. They've in turn given us their love and their energy and their work and their enthusiasm. They're part of our story. So we have the vines, we have the time, we've got the people. And another really important feature is our legacy of giving back to our community, both internationally and domestically, finding ways to help our community, whether it's us helping out sorting grapes for another wine through our optical sorter that we have, that we're blessed to be able to have, and helping other wineries achieve their potential, or helping, we have a Village of Hope, a small little food bank here in town. We do a lot with them. Cheryl is an unbelievable woman. The executive director does so much for our community. So we do as much as we can to help Village of Hope, and then some personal things that I do in various parts of Haiti, etc. So our legacy of giving back is, so these three pillars are really the feature of legacy wine itself. And so when you buy this, it only comes in 1.5 liter bottles. We now have these 9 liter bottles that you see. We did 5 of those just for fun because it was it's a gorgeous package. So when you buy the legacy, a portion of the proceeds of these wines is then in turn donated to charities throughout the peninsula. And we recently were able to offer a substantial amount of money to the Canada-Ukraine Fund to help the people of Ukraine based on the sales of this wine. And so really that's it. That's the legacy story is in a nutshell. It started out with me not wanting to lie to people, not wanting to make shit up, wanting to understand our place, wanting to know our vineyard, wanting to know our vines, and being able to express what this vineyard tasted like in an honest and truthful way. And from then on, it just continued to grow. And now we have this beautiful wine, this legacy that is going to be with us forever. And so when we had all of these wines collectively built up, we had a volume of wines in barrels sitting there of all these multiple vintages. I bottled in 2021, 738 bottles of legacy and kept 1,800 liters back. Put that back into barrels, in 600 liter barrels. This 2022 vintage comes. I now have 600 liters of wine from our 1 acre of vines. So 600 liters is going to be then married with the 1,800 liters that we have in existence from all the previous vintages, married and blended. We're going to separate out 600 liters again, the same volume that we brought in from this vintage. We're going to put the new blend of all of these wines back into the barrels, the 600-liter barrels, and we'll have 1,800 liters again. And next year, we'll repeat that process. And every year forward, we'll repeat that process with 1,800 liters being the base volume of wine that we have to create this legacy wine.
So if you go to a vintage where you have less available, so you just take out a little less.
Then we
but
take
the
out a little less.
1,800 is the base volume.
1,800 is a constant. It will never change. So the amount of wine that we make in a vintage depends solely on how much we get from the previous vintage. So 2022, as I say, we have 600 liters. 2021, we had 400 and something. We only did 327 bottles, I think it was, from the 2021 bottling, the second bottling. And we're going to be able to identify we didn't do it on the very first bottling because it didn't make sense to do it. But we're going to be identifying on the label what bottling sequence it is. It's our 12th year, second bottling, 13th year, third bottling. So what you have in your bottle that we sent you,
that's the 2.0, right?
That's 2.0. That is legacy, the second bottling, exactly. So in the Magnum in front of me is the first bottling. In the 9-liter bottle is the second bottling. And so we're going to be ensuring that there's a way that people can identify that. But the beauty is there is not much difference between one bottling and the next because we have the base wine of the 1,800 liters that is the constant.
You don't want it to change too much because that is
the legacy. Exactly.
And you know what? I've often talk about, terroir. We use the terroir terminology so many times, sometimes left and right, and terroir here. Isn't it the real definition of terroir, what we just talked about?
Well, I feel like it kind of is, because we're removing vintage variation. And so because the signal for quality is often solely dependent on the vintage. So if 2020 was great, then your eye is going to seek 2020 because you know that it's a pretty good chance that wine is going to be great. But 2018 may have been a little bit cooler. It may not have quite as much richness, as much structure, may not be as robust. So there's a quality indicator already pre-built into your mind as to the information you have already embedded in your mind about vintage from that particular winery. So we've removed vintage as the variation. So this really is about terroir, and it's about me understanding our place. It's about me understanding Boutique Vineyard and being able to honestly share what this vineyard tastes like and what it means to me.
This is absolutely amazing. One of the most incredible story ever. We talk about it this summer, and now that I have the privilege to taste the 2.0, and when we talk about purity, right? This purity match with depth. There's so many layers, and now might be figurative because we're talking about multiple years, but this is what it is. I can feel like the true dark chocolate, roasted red pepper. There's the cassis. There's also some blueberry. There's so many things, but everything is suave. Everything is just so well-rounded.
It's really hard to pinpoint any adjectives to describe this wine because we're, again, naturally attuned. If it's a cooler vintages, we've got a collection of adjectives that we're going to use to describe cool vintages. We have a collection of adjectives that we're going to use to describe warm vintages. And so all of these adjectives that we have swirling in our mind kind of get all jumbled into one because you've got in the bottle all of these expressions. There's not if you leave it in the glass, it ends up evolving unbelievably from some of the primary tertiary aromas that you get initially, and then the evolved aromas after it sits in the glass and opens up for a period of time. And so you can't pinpoint it. You can't say, my gosh, this was a real hot vintage. This is amazing. This is what I love about this vintage. So
this is Cab Franc.
Yeah,
this is Cab Franc.
Cab Franc from Boutique. That's what it is.
Exactly, right. And I will have I don't know if you can see the comment here, but I love that story. Katia says she bought a bottle and she's saving it for retirement in the 123 days. She's counting the days. I don't know if she's counting.
123 days and how many hours, Katya? I think you probably know that too.
And you know what? I'm not sure if she's counting the day because she's getting retired or because she's going to taste legacy. That's the question here, right?
Wow. Katya, will you please send me a picture when you enjoy that wine when you open it? I would love to see that on your retirement. That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. And Katya, if you can't like send it straight to Brian, feel free to send it to Carl's Wine Club. We'll forward it to Brian. But Brian, amazing story. Listen, the wine to me, when I taste it, it just brings length, depth, and complexity. Yeah. There's like these movement, like there's just like layers after layers, and it's just tasting history versus present all together is just pretty special.
Yeah, so I've been having had these wines in our cellar, secreted away in the corner for as many years as I have. I never really thought about how I was going to explain this wine when we ultimately put it in the bottle. Someday I'm going to come up with a 30-second elevator pitch that will explain it better than the 9.5 minutes it took me to explain it just now. But I am unbelievably proud of this wine. And if we look at all the work that we've done, as you said, I've been here for 32 years. When we look at all the work that we've done and all the wines that we've made, this is the one that I am probably the most proud of.
This is incredible. And also the whole idea that this is unique and this is the legacy of Boutique and Vineland. So it's amazing. On that note, I think it has to be the final note after a big thank you, how much we appreciate your time. I know you felt like you're under the weather and you need to go to bed, but amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And now we can share the wine with our members because the 1.0 is available to the first ever. There's a few bottles allocated to Carl's Wine Club. So if people who are listening here tonight wants to buy one of these 1.5 liter for a very special occasion, either if it's a retirement celebration, Christmas is around the corner, New Year's Eve, whatever the reason can be, let us know and we'll arrange the whole thing for you. Absolutely. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, that's great. So this is, as we said, this is the second time that we've done a live chat with you. I look forward to doing another one. I look forward to when you guys come and visit us again and we can do another tailgate tasting. But we really appreciate you. We really appreciate your club members. As I walked into a store today buying some more cold medication, for the first time I heard Christmas music. And so I feel that it's fitting because we're now almost upon the Christmas season. I want to wish all of your members and Mira and Carl, I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas, and I hope that you guys enjoy your time and enjoy Summerland. You've got a beautiful fire in the background. I know you live by the lake, and I know that you guys are going to enjoy that. So Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and listen to me ramble on about wine.
Brian,
it's amazing. We love it. And Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you too.
Thank you, Brian. Take care of yourself. We'll chat very soon.
Hope you feel better soon. Thank you so much.
See ya. How can you beat that?
That's amazing.
How can you beat that kind of conversation?
It's the best. It's the best.
I mean, you can't beat that. And I get it when we have it right in the glass here. Like we have that conversation in the glass. That last 25 minutes, the legacy part is sitting right here in the glass. Exactly. I smell it. I taste it. I don't only smell the aromas. I don't only taste the flavors. I smell and I taste the passion. I smell and I taste the story.
Yes.
This is a very special feeling when you taste that wine.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. It's more than a wine. It's a story in the bottle. It's a legacy in the bottle.
It really, truly is.
It is very true. And it's more than aromas. It's more than flavors. It's special. It's just amazing. Yes. Wow. Well, sometimes we look at each other.
So good. I have to say, so it's funny because you've been tasting wine as a professional for like almost 30 years. Hey, Carl Boucher?
Absolutely.
And me, as a complete non-professional, for about 2 years since the pandemic introduced me to what it is that my husband does for a living, because we'd been together for like 10 years, but I didn't really know exactly until we had to spend every day together working together. And then I was like, you got all these wines. Tell me about these wines. So if you remember, guys, Cab Franc was my least favorite varietal. It was my least favorite varietal when I started drinking wine during the pandemic. And then there's been a few that have grown on me that I've said, okay, I'm not super huge fan of Cab Franc, but this one I like, right? Well, this one I really like. I really like it. And boy, is it Cab Franc. Like, I could tell it's Cab Franc. You know?
It is. It's purity. It's like there's that every attribute that you can expect from Cab Franc, you got it there. But you know why, Mira? Because there's so much more than flavors and aromas in that wine.
Mm.
There's a story, there's a legacy, but you know also what? There's a depth. There's so much depth in that wine. When I taste it, I kind of feel like if I go like underneath and I coming back up, it's like, I don't know, it's like diving in the ocean. And like, you know, like you go like where your pressure at some point, like your ears they're popping up, and at some point you're coming back up. I don't know. It's a very unique experience. It's not
it's a little bit of an adventure in the glass, eh?
It's not only tasting the wine. I'm not only and it's true. I feel it physically and emotionally when I taste it. It's more of a full sensory but emotional experience.
Amazing.
It's just like very special. I just feel like in the sip, this is the 25-minute conversation that I just had with Brian. In every sip, talking like feeling the history behind the vineyard, the why, the reason behind the reasoning, and like you're like, and the whole everything makes so much sense. That's why no one ever thought of that before. This is mind-boggling because that's the history of a small plot of land, year after year, refining that story, giving the later chapter. It's like a book we never finish. You know, you never have and you always add the next chapter. Yeah. You're done with your sip and you just want to know what's the next chapter, like, right? And every sip is similar, but also a little bit different. That's what I've noticed in there. Every sip is similar, but a little different. Just like every vintage who comes in and comes out of that wine.
Yeah. And one of our VIPs, I think, from the group here is saying sherry, because I think there's a similar process. The Solera process is originally with sherry, right?
Yeah. And also that can be used with like the port, and like there's also but this is the Solera process, absolutely. But this is not sherry. It's wine. Nothing is fortified. It's just adding a barrel or X amount of liter of wine every vintage into the base 1,800 liter of wine. Every year you had a new chapter in the storybook. It's like an encyclopedia. Put it that way. It's an encyclopedia that you had a new book every year.
Yeah, and I think that there's a place in France, isn't there, a restaurant that does the same idea with a soup? And I think they've had the same soup going since the 1400s. Yeah. I'm sure there's a Guinness World Record behind that restaurant. But yeah, it's the same idea. Like they started the soup in the 1400s. They never.
I would say much safer with ferment anyway. But yeah, okay, a soup, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is.
I prefer the wine over the soup that's been in the making for 600 years. But
yeah, just absolutely amazing. I'm still like surfing on my emotion, on my wave of emotion to have that conversation. And I knew it would happen. I knew, knowing when I received that on a overnight shipping, we received it on Tuesday morning. So yesterday, it was shipped on Monday morning, overnight. Opened the box, it was like opening a treasure chest, right? It was like, like chilling, and like the lights popping out, and I don't know, it was like totally like in a fantasy world. And knowing that we're gonna have that conversation with Brian, I was anticipating something emotionally pretty special. But now tasting the juice while he's talking is just like so freaking unique. So yeah, guys, if anyone wants to get his hand on a bottle, there's a few available here for the club members. It's on the form. It's $300 for the 1.5 liters, but this is an encyclopedia of wine, of the story of the boutique vineyard. Yeah, it's really special.
Very special.
And guess what? The wine is unique. It's an emotional, sensory experience, the full body, also the mind. It's almost spiritual.
Yeah, it's very special. And it's really amazing, like what we heard in the beginning of the conversation too, where we were saying, Brian, how in the heck did you make such a good Cab Franc for only $15.95, including tax? So you kind of have both ends of the spectrum. You have this wine, which is absolutely incredible at $300 for the Magnum, right? But there's also these $15.95 Cab Franc, including tax, that drinks just gorgeously. Like, it's so rare to find a wine at that price point that's so good. And it's all in Brian's passion that he's brought along these 30 plus years.
Passion, dedication, like how dedicated, like, but yeah. This, I have a hard time to put all of that in the correct sequence, but yeah, passion, dedication, understanding of his craft, and like you said, he's learning every day. Like, if there's one guy who can pretend that, hey, sitting on his laurel and say, yeah, I can teach a couple people around me, I've been around, I've been there, done that. No, he's learning from everyone around him, and like humble and just fun to talk to. And I like that guy. I just love our conversation. And yeah, I feel proud right now. I feel proud to have the chance. Like, there's to taste 2.0 live with him, and to have the chance to tell that story to the people who are listening right now. Is just like, it's amazing. It's a privilege.
Very special. Very special. Totally agree.
Yeah, Cab
Are we gonna get your tasting notes?
Yeah, and I think it's going to change a little bit in terms of tasting notes. It's not going to be as like precise on aromas and flavors. I think it's going to be something a little bit more. I don't know. We're going to work on that, but I think that Brian was so correct in terms of there's so many layers in there. It's more about.
It's very special, isn't it?
It's more about the time and the place. About the time, like the 10 years in the making. Then yeah, I don't know. Like, I need to think about that. But yes, there's something's going to be put together in the next few hours together, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
It is
fantastic.
Ooh. So this is Vineland Estate Winery. We're right in the midst of the Vineland Weeks. An outstanding value pack, $132, including tax, with great deal on shipping. We include to that a $15.95, 91 plus points Cab Franc, the value wine of the year. Like, it's not only in the running now. This is the leader in the clubhouse, I have to say. And there's not a lot left in the week. There's only 3 more offers. So I can tell you, don't think there's anyone will beat the value of that this year. So including that, including one of the most amazing Rieslings, a sparkling Chardonnay, Chardonnay Muscat. So there's such a great diversity of wine in that 8 different wines featured this week, and the option. Whoa, not these
Sorry,
ones.
wrong
That's
one.
okay. That did. But also the possibility, the option of buying one of this very special legacy Magnum. So yeah,
Amazing. Good
so
stuff. Well,
good
I'm so
stuff.
excited to have a little more of this wine, actually. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's
looking
coming
forward to.
your way because look, we have because we need to work, so we have another third of that samples to sit down, dig
Yay.
deeper into it, put some tasting notes, get our passion, get our emotion into paper, and publish some of the notes that we're going to come up with. But yeah,
Man, that's
amazing.
good. And it's just starting to open up. Like it's only been open about 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and this is a tank sample, right? So
Yes.
this has not been bottled yet, so it's coming in that Grolsch bottle. So it was transport across the country in a 24-hour period. So obviously this is not the full representation of what 2.0 is. We have a good idea, but this, when it sits down, gets in the bottle, lays down for a couple of years, relax, settle down, this is going to be velvet. This is going to be absolutely the softness, incredible depth. Like I said, like to me, it's like diving in the ocean, right? So
Yeah.
in the ocean of Cap Franc, diving into the ocean of Cap Franc.
And what a great way to celebrate anything, building on the celebration that this wine pretty much already is in and of
There's
itself.
something special coming up. Hey, treat yourself. Yeah, you need one bottle of this in your cellar. So, yeah.
Good. Well, I can't wait to connect with you guys again soon.
There you go. And yeah, we'll keep working on our challenge. We have a few recording to do, and it's coming your way very, very soon. We've been say it. We've been talking about it for now a couple weeks. We've been teasing you guys. It's coming very, very, very soon. We can touch it. So yeah, let's.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time, and I hope you have a great day in the meantime. We still have Christmas gifting available. So if you are looking to send 1, 2, or 3 bottles as a gift, or maybe just to yourself if you wanted to try something without buying a whole 6 or 12 pack, we've got a few ideas for you, and we can put together just about anything from the things we've featured in the past. So
exactly, you're right. And also, if you know anyone who owns
Carl's Wine Club / carlswineclub.com/gifts, and you can see some of the things that can be ordered right away. But reach out to us if you want to customize something, especially if you're buying for a group of people and they need to go all different places. We can be your concierge and help make that happen.
Exactly. Corporate, personal, whatever you want. And if you want to make your life easy, gift a nice bottle or more than one of Canadian wines, let us know. We're here for you. Like we've been for 2.5 years now, and growing and having fun. Nights like that, tasting these kind of things just make me realize that we're so privileged to do what we're doing. And I want to thank all of you guys, our members and our Canadian wine lovers. So have a good evening. See you next time.
Absolutely. And I'm just putting the Christmas gift link in the comments, but you'll have to probably be fairly quick to click on it. Otherwise, this live will come back, and you can come back here in usually takes about 10 minutes for it to upload. So thanks again, guys. Cheers.
One of the best live of the year. Even if there's many of these great lives, this one has to be all the way up there because
that was pretty special with Brian.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Cheers.